Hi up everyone, welcome to today's tutorial. I'll just get straight into what materials I'll be using for today's drawing. So here's some general pencils. I usually use a 4B and a 2B, and then I've got a white one. And then there's this black one from a set of graphite pencils that I bought a while back. A bit harder than my generals pencils, so I can sharpen it a bit sharper and use it for little details that's not so good for generals pencils. And then there's my Mono Zero eraser, a normal eraser, and then I've got my blending stumps. I tend to use one for blacks, and then I've got one that I use for whites, and then I've got a few different sizes for when you want to work on smaller areas, little details and what have you. I also tend to use some blue tack or kneaded eraser, but I've just not put them on for some reason. And then a brush for blending and a big one for brushing little bits off at paper if I need to, if I've been erasing. But just be careful with that because it can smudge your charcoal as well. And this is the paper that I'll be working on. I just thought it'd be easier to show it to you than state what it is basically. So let's get cracking. So I'm working on a German Shepherd portrait today, and like with all of my charcoal drawings, I put my whites on first. Everywhere where you've got some whites and everywhere you've got lighter tones, just press on more where it's the brightest whites, and then don't press on as much where it's not as bright. The reason I add my whites first is because if you try putting whites over blacks, it don't come up really bright enough, you know, like proper white. It can just take that edge off, the brightness, you know, when you've got black underneath it. So I always put whites on first, and then obviously I go over it all with a blending stump, smoothing it all out. I work up in layers, so this is just my first layer. Don't matter about getting all your tiny details at this point, because you'll refine things further as you go along in your next layers. This is Axel, by the way. Axel was a police dog who lived in USA. He passed away recently, so a colleague of his human partner and handler had a drawing commissioned for him as a tribute. So this is now up and framed in its home in the USA. Now you can see I've come in with blacks, and I do pretty much the same thing as what I did with whites. Pressing on a little bit more with its actual dark black tones, and then just taking it easy a bit with tones are sort of like in between. Just bear in mind this footage, the image looks a little bit more contrasty than, you know, what the actual image looks in real life. You'll see in the photo end that it's not as contrasty, you know, your white bits are not as white. Just like with whites, I'm not paying too much attention to detail on this first layer at blacks. I'm just getting blacks on where blacks need to be put on. I am paying a bit of attention to direction at fur, as you can see here, but you'll not see it so much when you go over it with blending stump anyway. So it don't really matter too much about detail at this point. And then I go over them blacks with a blending stump. I was getting a little bit distracted here, so you keep seeing me go away and then come back. And you'll see it transform quite a lot when you blend them blacks. It becomes a lot darker overall. The patches under eyes, which are brown in photo, they end up looking, you know, a lot darker in real life. In this image, in this footage, I mean, they look a lot brighter. But you'll see at end how they end up really looking. Once I've gone over it with a blending stump, I come back in with black pencil again, start adding more details in, start pushing them darks, you know, the darkest darks more, to give more contrast. And then I do the same with white pencil, coming back in, adding details and start to refine things and tidy things up more now. And you'll see me keep coming back in with blending stumps as well to smoothen things down, and then I'll go back over the top with pencil again. And this is mostly what process comprises of from this point, really. Just keep coming in with pencils, adding more details, using your blending stumps, and then coming back in with your pencils and adding more details. It's pretty easy to keep layering with charcoals. They're quite forgiving in that respect. You can't get away with that so much with graphite. It's one of the reasons I started using charcoal, is because it's easy to put white charcoal on top of black charcoal, but you can't put it on top of graphite. So you can see there on Dog's Head at top where it looks bluish in photo, where it's reflecting light from the sky. I was able to put some white on top of that black to sort of create like a greyish effect and smoothing it down so it gives it that effect of light reflecting on it. Only problem with charcoal is that they like to break when you're sharpening them. And when you're buying them online and them being sent through post, you don't really know what's happened to them when they've been on the way to you. They are a little bit more on messy side as well. You can see me using some paper to lean on, but then people tend to do that even when they're using graphite as well. Plus with charcoal you can get darks a lot easier than you can with graphite, and it don't reflect light either. So it's nice and matte, whereas graphite tends to be shiny and it can be difficult to photograph. It can be a lot easier to get tiny details with graphite than it is charcoal. Charcoal can be a lot more difficult to do with tiny details. But overall I love charcoal. I like the effects that I can get with it, and I can produce works quite quickly using it. So I'm just refining details now. I've smoothened top of his head a little bit more again because it looks quite satiny in that photo with lights hitting his fur. And then I just add a bit of background. I just use white pencil and do some cross hatching. This is a personal preference thing. I do it with some drawings and not others. It's up to you whether you add something like that. I think it adds to some drawings but not others, so I might do it with some drawings and then leave others without it. So anyway, this is the finished piece. You can see it's not quite as contrasty as what it looked in that footage. I hope you liked this little tutorial, and if you did, if you could possibly click the like button and subscribe if you've not already subscribed, because I will be posting more tutorials like this. I would post a real-time one, but they tend to be quite long, and most people I find don't really watch that much of these really long videos. They get bored, I think, and click off. Let me know in comments what you think about it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!